I'm standing on a bridge at the beginning of Bishopston Valley. This bridge is over a river, but where's the river? The fact is, the river is actually underground. I'm here at Bishopston Valley, which leads to Pwll Du. Bishopston Valley is so interesting because there are so many underground caves, sinkholes, and a river that runs underground and overground at different points. You can see the river disappear underground at the top of the valley and flow out through the rock face further down. One question is, why is there evidence of a dry riverbed that has clearly been carved into the landscape, so water must flow through here at times? The only answer I can come up with is that when the river is flooding, the underground passage may be full to capacity and the surplus water must flow down the riverbed. The analogy is, under flood conditions, water is often flowing out through drains and running down the road. You've just seen water going down a plug hole. Well, here is a natural one. Here you could quite clearly see the water disappear underground. The water flows through the rock face into this pit. The water then disappears back into the rocks here, acting like a plug hole. A sinkhole is formed when a large underground cave is formed close to the surface, and the roof of the cave eventually collapses in. This can lead to a formation to a sudden large hole in the ground, often called a pit. This is Lower Door Pit, one of the biggest pits in the valley. An 8-metre climb would get you to the bottom. This was once an underground cave. Looking at the sheer size of this pit makes me wonder how big the cave would have been. This is known as the Guzzle Hole. It's a cave which links to the underground river. You can hear the water rushing by. The Guzzle Hole is the most well-known cave in the valley. It's easy to find as when you approach it you can hear the rushing water ahead. At first it sounds like wind in the trees, but as you get closer you realise it is far too loud for that. This is the first time we see the river emerge from underground. It exits at 2 points which join together and runs to the sea. The reason Gower has so many caves is because Gower is made of limestone. Carbon dioxide dissolved in water creates a weak carbonic acid, which over millions of years dissolves limestone along the fault lines, which creates the underground rivers and caves that we see today. I'm here at Long Ash Mine. It's well hidden in Bishopston Valley. This mine was used to mine silver and lead. It was in operation until 1854. It's so dark, quite scary. The working conditions must have been terrible. The mine is sealed to give further protection to bats that roost here, as well as protecting people who could easily get into trouble if they entered the mine. I'm standing by the remains of an old miner's cottage. It's located very close to Long Ash Mine. What strikes me more than anything is how small the cottage is. Imagine working in such a small mine all day and then coming home to this small cottage. We came back here the next day after heavy rainfall and we couldn't believe the difference. We had a lot of rainfall last night. I'm on the bridge where I was yesterday, and yet yesterday there was no water here at all.
But now look, this river is full. This just clearly proves that there is an overflow from the river underground.
I'm showing you an example of a sink where the plug is half out, but water is pouring in faster than the water is emptying. So the sink is gradually filled up and the surplus water is now going down the overflow, which in our case is the dry riverbed.
I can see water's clearly coming down into the pit and exiting through a plug hole at the bottom. But what if that plug hole got stuck or filled with logs and water was unable to leave as quick as it was coming in? It would overflow a bit like a bath. And yet, down to my right, there's evidence of a dry riverbed. The moss on the rocks makes me think this very rarely fills with water.
The only explanation I can think of is that sometimes the whole pit floods with water and spills over the edge, and this dry riverbed acts as an overflow.
Earlier on, you'll remember I was able to sit inside Guzzle Hole and tell you about the rushing water of the river underground. And yet, today, you can see that Guzzle Hole is quite clearly overflown. This tells me that Guzzle Hole also works as an overflow, and when it gets full, it goes right down here across this dry riverbed, which, as you can see, has water going down it.
There is another sinkhole higher up the river. Part of this has collapsed in recent years. Because of this, it has been cornered off and is considered too dangerous to approach.
As we head towards Pwll Du, the valley opens up into a series of meadows that were used to graze cattle over the centuries.
Pwll Du was once a very busy beach on Gower. It was once filled with people quarrying limestone. There was also a pub that served the quarrymen. It was not safe to drink water at this time. Beer was much safer. The average working quarryman would drink 15 to 20 pints a day. But it was a very weak beer.
This bank of pebbles is made from limestone. Before the use of commercial fertilisers, farmers would put lime on their fields. This was to reduce the acidity of the soil and increase crop yield. This is why people quarried limestone, because if you heat limestone, you get lime.
There have been many ghost sightings at Pwll Du of a lady in white. Rumours have it that a serving girl who worked in the Beaufort, one of the pubs at Pwll Du, had become pregnant, and as a consequence she killed herself and her young baby. The sightings of the ghost all appear to be very similar. People have seen a young girl in a white dress clutching a small bundle to her chest. She has appeared on the bridge, walking the valley, and in the Beaufort itself. She was also seen by 2 tourists who knew nothing of the area, but again the descriptions of the ghost are the same.
I'm standing on the bridge at Pwll Du, where the lady in white has often been seen at night. Although right now it looks picturesque and not scary at all, imagine what it would be like to be here alone, at night, in the dark. As I stand here and talk to you right now, I can't help but think of the 300 quarrymen that worked right there and would drink their beer in the pubs right over here. I think of the smugglers that would pull in at Pwll Du and smuggle their goods right up Bishopston Valley, smuggling their tobacco, brandy and rum. How many lives have been lost by the stormy, unpredictable seas of Gower? No matter how old I get and how much I learn, I'll only ever scrape the surface of the history of this one-in-a-kind place.